Real briefly, what we're going to do here is County Executive is going to start off, and he's going to give a description of what he's done in the last few years as far as trying to coordinate our agricultural programs. And then we're going to go through and have members of the agricultural subcabinet just kind of explain real briefly about where we are. We want to spend the bulk of the time having a give and take discussion, so we're going to move through this real quick, but I would ask if there's any questions as we go through this to hold them until we actually get to the part of the session where we have a give and take. So thanks.
Great.
And
Thanks.
County Executive.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And I tell you, having so many people come out, and I'm sorry there's not enough room for all the tables for everyone to sit, so I apologize to those out there who are not. And I also want to thank Mickey and the Howard County Fairgrounds Association for letting us be here. Thank you very much. We are here today because agriculture is so vitally important to our community. 1/4 of the land in Howard County, more than 40,000 acres, remains in farmland. And agriculture is the 5th largest economic driver in the county, with more than 200 million sales annually. But as we all know, and that's one of the reasons we're here, there are challenges with some of our urban and suburban neighbors who have concerns at times about farming operations, whether it be the noise, the smells, which frankly I love, the traffic, and even safety and the treatment of livestock. And as an industry, farmers are trying to adapt to changing agriculture markets. Martha sure knows about that. And consumer interests. They want the ability to seek new endeavors and to remain profitable. The goal here today is to discuss ways in which we can support and strengthen this industry for the future. The strategy I propose is twofold. First, to support farm programs that allow you to be productive and profitable. And second, to educate our neighbors on farming practices to strengthen our community relationships. And before we get into all that, I wanted to make some introductions. We have coordinated a sub-cabinet of county departments that involve agriculture, and the members of this group will work together under the agriculture coordinator to ensure that agriculture issues are addressed in a coordinated and efficient fashion. Many of them you already know, and they've already introduced themselves, but just to let you guys know. First, we have Jim Caldwell, of course, from the Office of Community Sustainability. We have Amy Gowan, the Deputy Director of Department of Planning and Zoning. Kathy Johnson from Economic Development, Joy Levy from Agricultural Land Preservation, Phil Nichols from the County Administration, and our new friend, Dave Plummer, the new manager of the Soil Conservation District. It's my understanding, is today your official first day?
It actually is next week, but, but I'm not spying from Montgomery County. I'm just here.
That's okay. Well, I was going to thank you for having this be your first day, but I really appreciate you coming here ahead of time, and I look forward to working with you. Bob Enzer was certainly a good friend of all of ours, and I know it's big shoes to fill, but I'm sure you'll do well. Thank you very much. And of course, James Zoller over here, who some of you may know as the roving Radish guy, but I'm also pleased to announce that his role will now be that agriculture coordinator that I mentioned before. He will lead this internal county group and will also be a resource for you to bring forward your concerns and creative solutions. This group actually has already started to meet. They meet about every 2 weeks, and they will talk to you today about the work they've already been doing, and they also want to hear from you, and that's the purpose of today. The biggest purpose is to have them and everyone in the sub-cabinet to hear your concerns or your thoughts or your ideas for how we should move forward. So my intent is to have an open line of communications with you and to creatively support you. I want to meet like this regularly and have the sub-cabinet and James be available for you at any time. So we want to organize this discussion today around 4 main areas. First, program unification, having existing and new ag programs coordinate efficiently and effectively. Second, industry profitability. Talk about partnerships and programs such as the Roving Radish and innovation grants that can help you and support you. Third, community education to help bridge the differences with neighbors. And fourth, legislation to ensure property rights and to alleviate barriers to your operations. So you've heard enough from me. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jim Caldwell, who will talk about our first area, unification and cooperation among the various different ag programs we have. Jim, thank you very much.
Okay, Alan already explained the fact that we've created this sub-cabinet, and the goal of that sub-cabinet is basically we've had a lot of activity in the county over time with different sectors working on different agricultural ideas and programs. What we're trying to do now is pull those together so that we internally have a way to discuss issues and move forward, hopefully in a faster and more coordinated fashion. And as part of that process, periodically we'll be coming to the ag community with issues or questions to kind of get a give and take again about how we can improve what we're doing to help what you all are accomplishing as well. In addition to that, the next bullet, we are also looking at putting together an ag visioning plan, and that's something that we clearly are going to be discussing with you as we move forward. It's difficult to know where you're headed if we don't have some sort of guidance as to where best we could be. If you look at what Howard County and the agricultural community in 1945, it clearly is a very different community than it is today. And the assumption is that may change into the future as well. So we want to be able to understand what the issues are, understand if there's new markets, and help the ag community kind of move forward with that visioning plan. And again, we do have the agricultural coordinator. It's a new position. James is filling that position. We're working very closely in our office to incorporate agriculture into the sustainability of the community as a whole. The sub-cabinet we talked about, and what I want to do is briefly talk about some of the ways that we've been able to bring greater unification and hope to do more of that in the future. Just last week, we had a groundbreaking out at the at the Patrick Farm, Maple Dell Farm, and that program is basically a win-win-win. It's a win for the Patricks because they are now getting the stream restored in the middle, running through their farm. It was a highly eroded stream, and it led downstream to the Tridelphia Reservoir. So not only are they improving their agricultural operation, we're improving the water quality at the reservoir, and subsequently, as a result of that, downstream from that is the bay itself. So in addition, we as a county are getting credit for that stream restoration as part of the stormwater mandates that have been put on us by the state permit. So all of that covers, we did a lot of overlays, and that farm also is part of our green infrastructure network, so that we can actually have migratory pathways through these farms and through the western part of the county. And there is a native species of plant which is having a difficulty kind of establishing itself, and that also is right downstream from that, and our hope is that by doing this restoration project, that is also helped as well. So that's a type of project that it's a public-private partnership. We're working closely with the Patrick family on their farm, and we're getting benefit on all sides. So I think that's the kind of thing we're looking for in the future. In addition to that, just as an example, also just the roving radish, which hopefully everybody here is now aware of, it's a similar type of activity where we're looking to create a program that benefits the local farmers by buying local produce and proteins in order to put these kit meals together. So that's a kind of idea of what we're doing with agricultural unification, and I think that's the end of me.
So Kathy and I actually are going to, you'll see a team effort on all this, and that's by design. We're working as a network and a team, and so that's why we'll be presenting these all on our expertise areas that we're dealing with. So profitability, as we all know here, is a key to success for farms here in Howard County. If we can't keep our agriculture community profitable, they can't survive. So the county realizes that, and we're going to support anything that we can, programs or projects that can increase the profitability of our local farms here. There's 4 different ways we're doing that with the roving radish. We're going to develop partnerships, certifications, and innovation grants. So the roving radish, this will be our 4th year going into this program. Last year, we bought $63,000 worth of local proteins and proteins. That's up from $42,000 the year before, so almost a $20,000 increase, or a little over that. This program is a good example of how we're creating a stable market for our local farms that they have a market that they can count on to buy their produce, and we're going to establish now a restaurant distribution with this roving radish. And the reason we're doing that is we're using our existing infrastructure. So it makes sense. We don't have to really do anything extra, except we're going to have a website that local farms can put up their produce or meats. Restaurants then can view those. The farmer sets the price. The roving radish is simply the person that's going to help with the marketing and the delivery and the coordination. So it really is a common sense approach of using what we have right now. We experimented with it last year a little bit and backed off a little bit because the roving radish was taking off at such such great pace that we decided we would do a little pilot, experiment with it, and this year really roll it out. Developing partnerships. This is something that just makes good sense. So as farmers, you guys are out there working and don't always have the time to go out there and search out partnerships or ways that you can be more profitable or opportunities that are out there. So as a county, we're going to try to help you do that. And all we're going to do is set these meetings up to get you the opportunities and know what opportunities are available to you. So an example of this, we have a talk with Myers Natural Angus or Natural Foods. They have a program called Local Harvest. They sell Angus beef to Wegmans and big retail outlets like that. They're going to meet with us at Thursday, March 7th, 7 p.m. right here in the dining hall. It's actually the Farm Bureau's board meeting that night too, so it'll be the first 20 minutes of it. But this is another example of how we're going to just simply help coordinate these partnerships so that you guys can have some more opportunities. Now, Kathy's going to go on the certifications now.
So certifications are becoming more and more important to the farming community with the recent changes in the Food Safety Modernization Act. It is going to require you to have certifications in GAP to sell to grocery stores, probably restaurants eventually, and maybe even the farmers markets as we go down the line. It's costly. The state of Maryland is offering grants and lower costs to do that right now. We did do a meeting on GAP certification and the Food Safety Modernization Act last month at my office at the Maryland Center for Entrepreneurship. We continue to do things like Annie's Project, new and beginning farmer training, so that you guys can get the business planning that you need to start applying for more of our Ag Innovation grants. We're doing a restaurant growers meeting with tourism on February 27th from 2 to 4 at the other barn in Oakland Mills. There on the back table, there is the county executive's invitation to that. You will need to register if you'd like to table to meet with restaurants so that you can sell your product. We're also working to do a meeting with the farm community and coastal Sunbelt produce so that you can wholesale more of your products. That will be coming the end of this month or early March. As we go into the agriculture innovation grants, we've been doing this since 2013. We have given out $114,000 for 25 projects here in Howard County, and we've matched that with $63,000 from our BITCO. These are projects that are on your farms that you can apply for January 15th or July 15th. Those are the two dates that you have to remember. You can get the application online through Economic Development. But July 15th and January 15th are my solid dates. The projects funded to this point have been a cheese building, high tunnel, deer fencing, hops, a malting facility, a silo, a compost turner, irrigation, a hay building, an aronia blueberry picker, and many others that I didn't add. So apply to those. Talk to me if you need a grant to help with a project. As you can tell, we don't say it has to be a huge project. It doesn't have to be that far outside of the box, but if it will help you develop your business, create more jobs on your business, then that's what we're looking for. With education, we have done 5 farm academies so far to date since this was first brought up at the Howard County Fair 2 years ago, right? Year and a half.
I think we did one before the fair, but okay.
Yeah. So to date, I have to thank Soil Conservation and Crystal McCormick for her lead on that. We've worked really closely, as well as the county executive's PIO office, Public Information. We have had 125 people out to those 5 farms so far. We did one for county employees that had 30 people in attendance, and we will be putting another one on in April for county employees, and then we will be doing a farm academy in the fall. We also started an agriculture education grant program. This is to get agriculture in our schools. We, to date, will have, by spring, 3,000 students already will have been affected by this grant, and we've only given out $9,000. So this is important. I do have grant applications on the table because if you as a farm would like to bring students to your farm, this will help the school cut down costs for busing or things like that. So I will tell you the money's going quickly, so if you want to be a part of that project, grab one of those grant applications and let me know. Okay, I think that...
One thing we realized when we were writing these initiatives down was communication is the key. So what we've found is we have a lot of different agricultural websites that are good, but there's no centralized one for the public or our farmers to go get information on meetings, or for the public to find out what's available locally, meats, produce, farm stands. So our goal is, and we have the domain and are hoping to roll this out in the next 2 months, is www.hocofarms.com. And the neat thing about this, it's going to be a centralized location where farmers and the public can get together and see what's going on in the community. So you may have Farm Bureau meetings listed on a calendar that they could actually, the Farm Bureau can say they're having an event, or as a farm, if you're having an event, you can submit that, we'll approve it, and it'll go up on a calendar. The other feature we're looking into is almost like a message board. So I know our farm has probably 10 acres of field that we don't take hay off of anymore. But I don't want to cut it, really. This would be a good opportunity for me to put, I have 10 acres of field that we're not using for hay, is anyone interested? And so it would be kind of a network where you can put what you need or what you have for the farm community to participate in. Let's see what we have next. Legislation.
So we've heard a lot this morning about all the policy and programs that we're looking to put in place to support the agricultural community, but we do know that there will be instances that will require legislative action. And so to do that, we want to work collaboratively with the farm community, and so be working through the agricultural sub-cabinet to make sure that the law is working for the agricultural community. And so right now we actually have a few pieces of legislation before the planning board and the county council, and I'll kick it off to Amy to talk about a few of those pieces.
Thanks, Phil. As Phil mentioned, Planning and Zoning is working on a few pieces of legislation right now. I'm going to speak about two of them, and then I'll pass it over to him to talk about the third. So the first piece of legislation is an amendment to the county's general plan to revise our tier designations. As many of you probably know, there was a Senate bill passed in 2012. It was Senate Bill 236. And it was an environmental bill that sought to protect the Chesapeake Bay and its rivers and streams by reducing the amount of development on septic systems. It required that local jurisdictions adopted tier designations. One of those designations, which is called Tier 4, severely restricted development rights for properties that they would have otherwise been able to develop under current zoning. And so what our tiers legislation does, it's actually a council bill that has been proposed. It's Council Bill 16. It restores those development rights for those properties that lost them when the tier designations were adopted in 2013. The impact is relatively small. It's less than 2% of the land in the rural west. But what it does is it allows the property owners to decide how they want to best use their land. It's a very detailed piece of legislation, so I won't go into all the details, but you can find all the information about it on the Planning and Zoning website. It's right on our homepage. There was some planning board discussions about it, technical staff reports that you're happy to read at your convenience. There'll be a public hearing, and that will be on February 21st. The other piece of legislation is actually going to be going to the planning board this evening. It's a zoning regulation amendment, and it's to eliminate setbacks from farm structures to adjacent dwelling units. So basically, if I'm operating a farm and I want to establish or construct a barn or a structure to house some livestock, currently if I have a residence next to me, I have a 100 to 200 foot setback from that residence that I have to abide by. Our legislation will eliminate that for new houses that are built in the future. So again, that'll be at the planning board this evening. And that sums up my legislation. I'll turn it over to Phil.
And so the other piece of legislation that we do have before the county council is an update to our right to farm legislation. And so this is to make sure that our right to farm legislation stays up with current times. It has two elements to it. The first being that we're adding a good neighbor policy, which basically states that the farming community are just as good stewards to the environment, to the community, and that as disputes come up with the residential sector and other aspects in the community, that we resolve those together and collaboratively. The other aspect of this is that should an individual bring a nuisance lawsuit against an agricultural operation, we would be requesting that the court, if the lawsuit is found by the court, deemed by the court not to be a nuisance, and to be in bad faith or without substantial justification, that the court should have that individual pay the legal fees of the individual with the agricultural operation. So that's the legislation we have before the county council. And now I'll turn it over to Joy Levy to talk about our current agricultural preservation program.
Good morning. So just to give you a little bit of an update as to where the Ag Land Preservation Program has been in the last couple of years, you may be familiar with the fact that we've had an open enrollment type of situation that has been going on since the spring of 2013. And in that time frame, we've acquired 11 county and 1 MALF easement. The total for the 11 county properties is about 655 acres, and the MALF easement was about 70 acres. And on the map, all the red dots are the acquisitions that we've already done. And then we're also about to settle, probably within the next month or so. There's been three more properties that have been going through the pipeline of approvals together, and those are all about to settle, and that'll be about another 305 acres. You can't really see those as well because I used green tabs, which don't really show up. And if I can find them, that'll be a good thing. Let's see. So I've got 1 and 2 and 3. So it's been really active in the last several years, and after those 3, we actually have 1 more that is in the pipeline. It's just a little bit further behind. So all that said, there's still a fair bit of uncommitted land out there that could be preserved, and County Executive Kittleman is looking at some potential changes to the program so that we can maximize the available funding that we have and to get the best properties that are still out there and would like to come into preservation. So with that in mind, the things that we'll be looking at for potential changes would be the scoring system. Most of you are probably familiar that that's how the value of the easement is determined. We have a scoring system that looks at 10 different aspects of how good the property is from an agricultural standpoint. And we might also be looking at the eligibility criteria for properties coming into the program. And that's all I have at the moment.
Thank you all for coming.
Yep, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.